Good evening, everyone. You're welcome to another class for this weekend. And as you arrive, please write your name and any possibility where you're attending the class from, the state you're attending the class from. Please note that on the chat box as your attendant. And while we give another 5 minutes for every other member to arrive, please make yourself comfortable. Find a place to to sit and be comfortable, and you have enough network while we wait for others to join the class. Thank you. So we are all welcome to the class today. And today we'll be going to be having a lecture on the Nigerian Constitution and citizens' rights with the code 912. Now, our facilitator today will be Uchechi, who is the electoral college Nigerian Constitution and citizens' rights officer.
Hi everyone, I can't hear you, Tolu Wanimi, in case you're speaking.
Hello, Tolu, are you there? I think his network, he probably has gone off. Okay, let me just read your profile, Uchechi, so we can start the class.
Oh, thanks.
All right. So Uchechi is a legal practitioner with a key focus on technology law and regulatory compliance. She serves as a legal consultant to the foremost inter-country adoption agency in Nigeria, Life Foundation, BBC News, and the Electoral College. She's the head legal consultant of Zoe Legal, a corporate, commercial, and startup legal advisory firm in Lagos State. She has worked with several local and international bodies on fintech, telecommunications, employment law, and immigration. In addition to her legal practice, she is very keen on public advocacy and the education of Nigerian youths on politics and governance. She serves in the Electoral College as the Deputy Director, Lagos State. Uchechi is called to the Nigerian bar and has obtained an LLM in international commercial law from the University of Hertfordshire. She runs a podcast called Zoe Legal, where she speaks on legal issues and is keen on using her platform to encourage awareness and education of the masses. Uchechi is one of our very own. She's the Deputy Director of Lagos State for the Electoral College Nigeria, and today we'll be looking at the Nigerian Constitution and citizens' rights. You're welcome, Uchechi. It's always a pleasure to have you. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Wumi. It's a pleasure to be here. And I think I'd like to also mention that the house is really full, and I think I would accord it to the work of the Electoral College, especially Wumi, who is the Chief Provost. Well done, team. I think you guys have been doing such a wonderful work, and with every new cohort, you can see an improvement in participation, in style, and every other good thing. So well done to the Electoral College. I'd also like to mention that I'm not alone today. The ED has so graciously joined us, so I feel very comfortable because I have a backbone, sort of. So thank you, Edie, for joining as well. It's always a pleasure to have the class with you as well. Welcome, everyone. I hope that this course of events has been beneficial to you. I hope that you've had valuable lessons, one or two things, that you've picked out from the classes. I was once a student as well, like you, and I would say that the Electoral College is one of the most selfless platforms out there. I mean, everything you learn here is for free, and you would attest with me that the quality of facilitators here is top notch. I'm still a learner, I'm still very much excited to hop into any class, and I know that it will be a really good one. So well done to all the participants, and I encourage you to continue until the end because it's always very worth it. All right, so just as Wumi had mentioned, my topic for today is the Nigerian Constitution and citizens' rights. So I'll just start by asking, I hope that you all can hear me, and I hope that you all can unmute your mic and speak. I'll start by asking the class, what comes to your mind when you hear about rights? What do you think rights are, and how do you think that plays out in the Nigerian terrain? Anyone can go on. You can unmute and speak, please. Adeyemi, please go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I think
Good evening.
when I heard about rights, I think rights are privileges you enjoy as a citizen of a country.
Okay. Precious. Precious, you can unmute.
Good evening, ma. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
What comes to my mind when I hear right? The first thing that jumps to my inalienable. That is something that is not separable from the fact that. So what I think first is what it is and what is also required of it. Before we talk
I can barely hear you, Precious.
Oh, okay. Good evening once more. Can you hear me now?
It's still breaking.
Yeah. Okay, Precious, let's hear from James while you sort out your network. So when you hear the word rights, what comes to your mind?
James, we can't hear you either. Are you there? I think the network is.
Okay, just so that we don't take too much time.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, James, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, this is Abayomi, not James. Hello.
Please go ahead.
All right. I would say rights are things I can freely do and which have a legal backing. If I would define it. Thank you.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Just one more person, a lady now, Eniola.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, rights are what you are entitled to as a citizen of a country.
Okay, very good. I'd say everyone is correct. Everyone has spoken well. All of these elements are what you would describe as rights, really. So I'm going to talk about the definition of rights and all that encompasses what right is. But just as a context in general, I will be talking about the general overview of rights, the legal framework of the rights of a citizen in Nigeria, and also more specifically, because we are, talking about political and, civic education here, I'll be focusing on civic and political rights. And also I'll be touching on the Nigerian Constitution and the various rights that, pertain to each citizen when it comes to politics and governance. Okay. Now, when you talk about rights, you can't fully grasp the concept of rights without talking about the rule of law. The rule of law, when it comes to rights, must be respected and upheld. Now, the rule of law is the guarantee of a democratic society. What do I mean by a rule of law? You cannot have a society where it is business as usual or you do as you please, right? That means that everyone has come together and agreed that this set of precepts, this set of rules, this set of orders is what's going to govern everyone's activity. It is a doctrine that says that everybody, every single person is under the law. The law is supreme and the law is no respecter of person. And the government must exercise its powers in accordance with that law. And the citizenship must not be exposed to any sort of arbitrary or dictatorial leading. Some principles that govern the rule of law is one, superiority of the law, separation of powers. So you have the legislation, the legislative house, you have the executive, and you have the judiciary, right? So there's proper separation of powers. Everybody is sort of having a check and a balance to each body. So no one body has full authority over the law or the precepts of that land. The law must be predictable and it must be known. That means what you do to A, you must do to B. There's equal application. It is just, it is robust, it is accessible. There's no hidden law that only if you know about and you're using that law to judge everyone. That means it must be accessible. So you have, the Constitution, which is known as the broad norm or the overall, document that, has all the laws, or all the laws derive their powers from. And then you then have regulations, and you then have sub-acts and all of that. All of these have to be accessible. That means every Nigerian must, have a means to getting across these laws and knowing them and understanding them. Also, you have the independence of the judiciary. These are all elements that, tie into the rule of law. So bear in mind, I said that the rule of law is what governs a democratic environment. Now, flowing from that, what are rights? Someone mentioned that rights are your entitlements. Yes, good and fine. Rights are legal, social, or ethical principles of freedom or entitlement. That is, rights are the fundamental normative rules about what is allowed of people or owed to people according to some legal system, social convention, or ethical theory. When I say that, I mean, you would understand that to mean that what is rights, what accrues as your rights here in Nigeria may not be the same in perhaps the US. The rights that you enjoy in Nigeria, you may not enjoy in the US, possibly because you are not a citizen there, or you are not, or perhaps your rights are limited in a sense. But then you have different kinds of rights. There are fundamental human rights, there are ethical rights, there are social rights, there are political rights. And because of this class, we're going to be focusing on political and civic rights. By legal, I mean that it is stipulated by law. That means the law has specifically written it down somewhere or made a proclamation that you, because by virtue of the fact that you're a citizen of Nigeria, you are entitled to so, and so. And it is important for you to be aware of these rights, because the opposite of rights, I would say, are obligations as well, because sometimes you might just be going about your way, you do not know that, because you have, no, the opposite of rights is not obligations. The opposite of rights is not obligation, I take that back. But if you do not know your rights, you're then exposed to being taken for granted and also being infringed upon, right? Your rights could be infringed upon without you, being aware of that. So it is important that you are aware of the rights that your country has, accorded you as a citizen. For the mere fact that you're a citizen of Nigeria, there are things that you are entitled to that maybe someone from the US or the UK or even from Kenya is not necessarily entitled to. And one of those things are political rights and civic rights. But before I go on to that, I'll touch on the legal framework of rights in Nigeria. I think I'll pause here and just ask a bit of question. Where do you think that your rights, where do you think you derive your rights as a citizen? What are the rule books, or what are the regulations, or where do you think you can find out about your rights as a Nigerian? I'm asking an open question. Anyone can answer. Where do you think you can access your rights as a Nigerian citizen? Where do you think those rights are? How can you access them? Zoom G, sorry if I'm murdering your name, please unmute.
Okay, the Constitution.
Okay.
Yeah.
Correct, the Constitution. Precious. or Eniola? Anyone else?
Oh, can you hear me? Okay, I wanted to say in the Constitution.
Okay, the Constitution. Yes, that's the popular one. Do you know anyone else wants to say anything other than the Constitution? James?
All right. The Constitution and any other body of law, whether United Nations, whether bylaws or any other laws, so far it's a law that is ratified and accepted by representatives of the people. Thank you.
Awesome. That's a very good one. Thank you, James, for that. And like everyone rightly said, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is sort of like the rule book of all rule books. You know, it's the Bible. The Constitution has in its fundamental human rights that are enshrined. You have the right to life. You have, the right to association. So all of these rights you can find in the Constitution. Now, the Constitution also gives birth, I would say, it gives life to other sort of promulgations, like, for instance, the Electoral Act. You have INEC regulations and guidelines for the Code of Conduct. You have the Child Rights Act as well, just like James mentioned, international human rights obligations. And these are international laws that have sort of been ratified, and they now take place in Nigeria because they've been ratified as laws in Nigeria. These are just a few of them. Some of them have been ratified, some have not yet been ratified. Or ones that, pertain to politics, you have the International Convention on Economic and Social and Cultural Rights, conventions on civil and political. So you can just go through some of them. They have really good provisions, and some of them we have actually adopted them in the new acts that was just just put in place. So it is actually important to go through these rule books and see exactly what we're working with in Nigeria. What is Nigeria ratifying? What are we now have access to? What sort of conventions apply to us as Nigerians? We talk about conventions on the rights of the child. That's one rule book that I would say that it's really important to go through, because there are different rights that accrue to a child, even though some states have failed to ratify it into their rule books, like some northern states, because obviously there's some content in there that is against some religion. But I would say that by and large, a lot of states have ratified that rule book. We also have International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearance. Obviously, that also deals with international borders and protection and all that. But moving ahead, we're going to be talking about civic and political rights, civil and political rights. Now, political rights refer to an individual's ability to participate in the civil and political life of a society and state without fear of any sort of discrimination or repression, and is very, very closely tied to your citizenship status. As a Nigerian, you have a right, as long as you are of age and you identify as a Nigerian, you have the right to participate in the political rights of Nigeria without any fear of discrimination or repression. Sometimes when I speak with people, there's sort of like there's a fear of there's a reservation in participating in politics. And I'm like, you're actually shortchanging yourself. You're doing yourself a disservice, because as a Nigerian, this is something that you have full access to. There shouldn't be any sort of repression or discrimination to your ability or your willingness to participate fully in the political and civil atmosphere in that country. And this is something that someone from the US does not have, someone from Kenya does not have. So really, who are you leaving it for? These are rights that accrue to you as a Nigerian, and you should fully take advantage of that. And some of these rights include right to vote in an election, right to run for office, right to join a political party, and right to participate freely in political rallies, right to make, comments, air your own opinions about the political atmosphere, right to speak freely, right to even join protests as long as it is done peacefully, right? So that's what your civil and political rights entail as a citizen of Nigeria. Now, I would also say that civil and political rights are a class of rights that protects individuals' freedom from infringement by governments, social organizations, or private individuals, and it ensures your ability to participate freely in that political life of a society. So when you hear about people being probably jailed or being arrested, it begs the question of, okay, isn't it this person's right to participate freely? And most times people don't even realize that, these rights are being infringed on. It is meant to ensure your safety and your mental and your physical and mental integrity, that those things are secured. You're protected from discrimination, from any sort of grounds of gender, national origin, wherever you're from, sexual orientation, whatever it is, ethnicity or disability, you just have that right, freely given to you just for the mere fact that you're a Nigerian. Okay, moving on. Political rights include natural justice, and that's when it deals with the court system, right? So rights such as having fair trial. I mean, that everyone is innocent until proven guilty. You have the right to have that due process go through the courts of law. You come, you put your evidence, you argue your case in court. Everyone has that right. You cannot just adjudge someone guilty just by the mere fact that you think that they are guilty. Sometimes it's always funny when you see these arguments online, when someone does something like, oh no, you should kill him, you should take away his property. No, Nigeria actually allows you to have a fair trial, a fair hearing. And that means that you have the right to present your case and be adjudged according to due process. You also have a right to seek redress or legal remedy, when your rights are being infringed on. Political rights include freedom of association, right to assemble, like I mentioned, right to petition as well, rights of self-defense, and a right to vote. Citizens' rights as provided for in the Constitution, yes. So like we mentioned earlier, the Constitution is the ground norm of all rights in Nigeria. It contains in it, all of the human rights that you have as a Nigerian. But then again, there's a question that it is true that we have this right, but are these rights respected in Nigeria? You really have people that honor these rights as Nigerians. Does the executive actually, respect these rights as Nigerian? But if you ask me, I would say that the first question is to first of all educate yourself on the rights that you have as a Nigerian. First of all, even know what is applicable to you as a Nigerian. When you go at the police checkpoint, what are the rights that are put to you as a Nigerian? When you're voting, what are the rights that are put to you as a Nigerian? When you put someone in office, is that it for you? Is it like, okay, do whatever you want to do? No, you still have rights. You have a right to recall whoever you put there. So there are different things that are put to you as a citizen in Nigeria. But we first of all have to be aware of those rights. We have to, garner knowledge so that when we speak intelligently, we speak wisely. And even when we make arguments, when we state our case, even when we run for office, you know exactly what your rights are, both as a voter and the one who is being voted for. Does the justice system have the will to treat the issues of human rights without fear of favor? When you talk about that, you talk about the checks and balances, the division, the different arms of government. Are they properly checked? Is there a clear independence of the judiciary? We say that our judiciary is independent of any sort of favor or biasness from the other other arms of government. We all know the answer to that. Does the country have institutional framework to tackle and grapple with human rights abuses? I'll say that yes, we actually do have those frameworks, but whether they are properly being installed or whether they're probably being carried out it leaves a lot to think about. And also, does the Nigerian government know what human rights and tenets of democracy are? I would say that as well, it is on us citizens to demand from whoever it is that is asking for our votes. Ask them about your rights. As you're going there, what do you think my rights are as a citizen? Do you even know what I'm entitled to? Or do you think that when I put you in power, you're free to do whatever you choose to do? Do you know that I have the right to recall you if you misbehave? These are different things. These are different questions that you need to put across to you, the people that are asking you to vote for them. Do they even know what they're going there to do? Do they even know what your rights are and what they're going there to protect? Because if you're going to preserve my rights, you should at least know what those rights are. All right, moving on. So I'm just going to touch on the few fundamental human rights that we have under the 1999 Constitution as amended. So we do have the right of freedom of thoughts, conscience, and religion. We have freedom to think and hold your own political views. Nobody has a right to tell you, this is what it is. You have the right to think, formulate your own ideologies and, go as you please. That's fully your right. No one can force you to have a certain mindset about a political party or maybe a religious view. No, you have a right to freedom of thought, conscience, and of religion. All right, next, you have the right to freedom of expression and the press. Yes, you do have a right to offer your opinion, to give your opinion about the government. We operate a democratic society, so you have a right to, as long as it is not, you're not propagating treason or you're not, inciting the country to overthrow the government, which is obviously an act of treason. But you do have a right to give a fair criticism and a fair judgment about what you think, the government is doing. And that's why, there was a lot of uproar in the recent, well, not recent, but during the Twitter ban. What exactly was the government trying to achieve by silencing its citizens? We do have a right to freedom of expression and the press as well. And it's something that we should fully take advantage of. And I think that with the rise of social media, a lot of people are being very, vocal and expressive about, politics and giving their opinions. And it's something that, should be encouraged, albeit it should be done in a respectful manner, in a way that encourages progress. And I would say that that's one of the things that Electoral College does a lot, with our symposiums and our different media engagements. It's one thing for you to, express yourself, but do so, with knowledge and, sort of intellectually have an intellectual discussion, not just to say, oh, maybe someone like Osibanjo is not doing anything. What do you want Osibanjo to do? The office of the vice president is quite limited, but let's have engaging conversations that can actually bring about change. Let's educate ourselves so that when we come out to speak, we're expressing ourselves in a way that, is insightful, yet we are armed with our rights and our education, like what we're having here, speak intelligently, and we're able to see change, bring change to pass, right? Also, we have a right to peaceful assembly and association, and the keyword there is peaceful. Keyword there is peaceful. By assembly, it could be in form of a protest, it could be in form of a political rally, it could be in form of a concert. All of these elements are, something that we can do as our rights as citizens. But then when it starts to get rowdy, when it starts to infringe on another person's, rights of probably movement, maybe you're blocking a federal highway or you're blocking a state, route, you're now infringing on another person's right. So everything we do, we almost always have to bear in mind that other people as well have rights to enjoy. So your rights are not what's the word? Your rights are not total. Your rights are not all encompassing. It stops where another person's rights start. So we always have to bear in mind that while we are enjoying our rights, while we are expressing our rights, there are other people's rights as well that need to be protected. So we have a right to peaceful assembly and association, but when it gets, to be disruptive, when it gets to be, like a vandalism, it gets rowdy. Obviously, the state is going to kick in with its own way of protection, but everything obviously has to be done in an orderly and peaceful manner. We also have a right to freedom of movement. I remember I said that our rights are not, totalitarian. It stops. There are some times when, for instance, for the good of the public and for the protection of the state, and maybe because it's for public policy, sometimes the state limits your rights. For instance, if there's a state of emergency in a particular location, there can be curfews that are, instated by the state government. So in that instance, you will know that, okay, I do have the right to move freely, or perhaps after 6 o'clock, for the benefit of public policy or public safety, I should, be in my house. So you cannot, if somebody has instated a state of curfew, you cannot now say, oh, I have a right to freedom of movement, let me pass. No, all of these rights, they need to be checked in times of, problems or war or things like that. So we still need to, even though the Constitution has given us all of these rights, we still need to update ourselves in recent happenings and what is the state saying this particular time. Can I go here? Is this place accessible to me? Things like that, because ultimately the state is there for our own protection and our own preservation. So we need to be aware of that. You have a right to freedom from discrimination. Yes, and by discrimination, obviously we are all Black, or maybe some of us more Black than others, but we wouldn't really be talking about race in Nigeria, because the majority of us are Blacks, right? If it is in a place like UK, then you can talk about, okay, freedom from discrimination when it comes to your race or your skin color and all of that. But here, it is more about perhaps your ethnicity, your social status, or your gender. So things like that, you have the right to freedom from. In my culture, being an Igbo girl, we used to have something called the Osu caste system. So because of perhaps your social status, where you're from, the circumstance of your birth, your rights were limited in those days, but not anymore right now. I know that there are some villages, some really inner villages that still practice it, but things like that are actually something that you can bring to court and get it adjudicated upon. I know I do have a right to freedom from discrimination. I can't participate in politics. I don't have to be from a particular region or a particular ethnic group, or have some sort of pedigree before I am able to participate in my political and civic business in my country. No, but as long as you're able to fulfill the requirements of that participation, right? You definitely have the freedom. You have a right to freedom from discrimination in any way, shape, or form. Even, well, we could talk about education, but obviously, if you want to contest for, say, a presidency or a governor, there are some requirements, like you must have gotten your education to some degree, right? So those are basic requirements to actually contest, and those requirements are for a reason. That you should at least prove that you're intelligent to an extent before you can participate. But those ones aside, when it comes to overall social status, you cannot say, oh, because you were poor, because you were selling Gary at some point in time, you're not able to participate. No, you have a right to participate freely. You also have a right to acquire and own immovable property anywhere in Nigeria. I think we all know that. Okay, so I'm just going to touch, this is going to be a very quick class anyway. I'm going to touch briefly on the INEC regulations and guidelines for the conduct of elections in Nigeria. So according to INEC, the regulations of INEC, as a citizen of Nigeria, as long as you're 18 years and above, and you identify as a Nigerian, that means you do not have any other, you don't have three citizenship, because if Nigeria only operates dual citizenship, so you can be a Nigerian and another citizen. You can have a Nigerian citizen and another country citizenship. You cannot have three, you have to denounce one. And if you have denounced Nigeria, then that's that. But yes, as a Nigerian, and you identify as a Nigerian, you have a right to register to vote. It is the right of every qualified citizen in Nigeria to register and vote during general elections. This right is guaranteed by the Constitution and cannot be denied to any potential qualified citizen. However, there are sometimes when the INEC or the commission, perhaps suspends the registration in order to, they have different calendars and all of that. I mean, it's not always open for you to register and vote. So when the portal is open, then you can vote. You can't say, oh, I have a right to vote. It must always be available for me to vote. No, it is now our duty to, monitor the calendar and know exactly when it is open. But as long as it is open, every single Nigerian citizen has a right to register to vote. Now, is the accessibility of registration that you might also, raise concerns about. For instance, people who are in the diaspora, how are they able to access, the registration? And these are things that we ought to bring up as, bills and sort of promulgate changes. Every Nigerian all over the world should be able to register to vote. It is done in other constituencies, it's done in other countries. So why can't we have a situation where every Nigerian, wherever they are, they are always able to register and vote? You also have a right to vote and be voted for. Like I mentioned, as long as you have fulfilled all the requirements laid down by law, you are eligible to vote and be voted for. However, as well, you have to fulfill the conditions. I mean, you have to have your valid voter's card. I think at this point, not having your voter's card should be like a crime or something, because we've said this over and over again, register to vote. It is your right as a citizen. It is your right. Your voter's card is your right as it's your one tool. It is your one, what's the word? Your one weapon. It's your one tool as a Nigerian. I'm a Nigerian, therefore I get to decide the fate of my country. That's like the barest minimum. The barest minimum. In fact, it should be a thing that once you clock 18, that should be a badge of acceptance, that you get your valid voter's card and you register and you vote. So once you do that, as long as the polling units are open, you have the right to walk in there and cast your vote to your preferred candidate. And obviously you can only be voted for. You can only come up as a candidate through the sponsorship of a political party. That is the law in Nigeria. You cannot just wake up and then start saying people should vote for you. No, you have to be registered through a recognized political party. And by recognized, I don't mean a popular political party, but a political party that is officially recognized by INEC. That's the way that you can be voted for at an election. You also have a right to recall an elected representative. There are ways, to recall an elected representatives. That means that you can actually summon back and withdraw the mandate that you have given a legislator through an election, right? So once elected to the Senate, House of Representatives, or House of Assembly, can actually be recalled by the registered voters of the affected constituency. So we remember that there was a period when a lot of people were very enraged about some set of representatives, like I think it was in the House of Representatives in Lagos State, where a number of people that people were very displeased about, and they went on social media and there was like all these memes. But all of that energy, we could have actually channeled it. To actually effectively put some kind of change, because we did all of that and they still remained where they were. There wasn't really any form of, change. Well, you can actually recall an elected representative if we come together, we educate ourselves, and we actually put our minds to it. We can recall an elected representative by referendum. We also have a right to secrecy when voting. So obviously, you're not obligated to tell people who you're voting for, and that's why that polling unit is always, sort of secluded. There's like a barricade there where you cast your vote in private and then you walk away. No one can come and harass you and tell you, oh, who did you vote for? Who did you not vote for? No, that's your right. You cast your ballot papers in secret, and in some obviously in some locations it's fraught with dangers and conflicts and all of that, but it really shouldn't be so, right? You're supposed to cast your votes in privacy and in safety. You also have a right to attend rallies and campaigns. Like I mentioned, freedom of association. You can campaign for your own candidates. You have a right to join rallies and do all of that. You also have a right to information about election. That's why it's on INEC to announce the details, the time, the dates, the procedure, the venue. Every single detail about an election should be made known in public so that everyone would have the opportunity to cast their votes as at when due. So in summary, I would just make this short comment that the Nigerian Constitution is actually a really well-documented rule book. A lot of people look down on it. A lot of people have a lot to say about the Nigerian Constitution. And I would say that I was one of those people until I went through the Electoral College, and I realized that by and large, the Nigerian Constitution, if we really, really do follow every single detail of it, it's actually a well-documented rule book. It's not the best, it's not perfect, but we don't even do 20% of what the rule book says, But if we do, it outlines a number of fundamental human rights. The problem is not only that the leaders do not even care about the implementation, but they may not even be aware of what the law says. Another thing is not just the leaders, because the truth is that the leaders may know and they may be using that to rule, but the citizens on our own part, we are not also aware of what the rule book says, what the Constitution has made available to us. If we were aware and if we all understood what our rights were, how powerful we were as citizens, individually and collectively, would actually be in a better position to implement the change that we need. Obviously, there's a lot more to do in terms of structuring and all of that, but the first thing we should arm ourselves with is the knowledge of the rights of us as individuals and as citizens. And hopefully, when we do that, we'll find a way to marry democracy, the rule of law, and human rights. And with that, I will hand over to our ED. I'm sure he has a couple of things to say as well. Thank you so much, class.
Thank you very much, Uchechi. As usual, you amaze me. I keep asking myself whether you passed through the Electoral College or I passed through Uchechi's class. I'd rather comfortably say I passed through Uchechi's class. Now, as regards the Constitution, it's common, and you have your social media influencers and a lot of people saying things about the Constitution which aren't necessarily true. I want to first make something clear. The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria belongs to every citizen, not to lawyers, not to senators, not, I'll tell you, averagely, people in the National Assembly have barely read it. And your State House of Assembly are by far worse. If you do not understand the Constitution, you have no reason engaging. And I'll tell you why. Well, politics always engages you, but it's better if you come to politics with an informed opinion. Most of the time, our opinions are not informed. I remember seeing an issue that trended on Twitter not too long ago, and it was basically about a woman slapping or jacking a policeman something about that, and people were saying she had the rights because guy seized her phone or something. I can't remember what exactly happened, but it spurred up a conversation. And I can't remember whether it's section 395 of the Criminal Act, which of course restricts citizens. And this is for clear due cause. You can't abuse officers of the law. You might dislike them, but or their way of operations, then you'd have to take that up legally. But to say you start to attack officers of the law and try to justify it, that would be totally and clearly lawless. And I think I posted this set of tweets. I think section 395, if I'm right, 395 of the Criminal Act. And people were surprised, received quite a lot of retweets, and people didn't know these laws existed. And the same way with NSAS, you decided to go after a unit of the police instead of checking with Chapter 2 of the Constitution, which does not guarantee your social, developmental, and economic rights preceding the state. And these situations happen a lot across board, and we refuse to engage the system. You can't do more than what your perspective can see. And we need to understand this. Most of the time we say where is that as long as the citizens understand the Constitution, they can hold people in power accountable. They can hold those politicians that are crossing the line accountable. Now, most people here, if I ask randomly, if you didn't come from, say, Lagos, Bayelsa, Kano, Jigawa, Sokoto, somewhere else, and I said, why can't you run for office there? You're born and raised there. Most of them are going to tell me the law doesn't stop anybody from running anywhere in Nigeria. It doesn't hamper anybody for the country itself. And we need to clearly understand this thing. So I'll go into the question session and look for how things are, and then we'll talk about that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Edie. Thank you, Uchechi. That was short and sharp. Thank you. Now we'll take questions. I can see Zoom J's hand is already up. You can go ahead and ask your question, please.
Okay. Thank you very much for the lecture. Okay, so my question is, are there places where there's like a conflict in the Constitution? Because there are certain areas when you go to, you just feel as if as when we're talking about the Police Act and the Land Use Act. So there are places where you get to and they said no, there's a higher, they're going to take it higher or something like that. There's sometimes always conflict when you're trying to make your own case and then somebody will tell you no, it is like this when you go higher. So are there cases where it conflicts, or let me just hear your view, man? Thank you.
Yes, definitely. There are situations where the local legislation conflicts with the Constitution. And what I know, what we were educated on, as passing through law school, is that wherever you find a local legislation being in conflict with the Constitution, that local legislation is void or voidable to the extent of that inconsistency with the Constitution. Because the Constitution is sort of like we call it the ground norm. It's like the river from which other regulations, tap into or get their own sort of rights from, or their own legalism from, their own life from. So if you find, you mentioned the Land Use Act, and I think I remember vividly while in school, that was actually touched upon. There's a part where the Land Use Act says that land is owned by you can own land or something, and then the constitution says that land is owned by the state. That's area of conflict. But if you find that there's any conflict between the constitution and any local legislation, the constitution will supersede such a local legislation. And if it ever got to the court, or if it ever got to the judiciary, you would find with precedents, none is really coming to mind at the moment, but with precedents, you find that the court would really uphold a version of the constitution. But again, I'll also say that sub-legislations or sub-regulations, they serve to expatiate on more specific areas of the law. Because the constitution is the constitution, it cannot necessarily carry in it or every single aspect of the law. That's why you need sub-legislations. But as much as possible, a drafter or a writer would have to still, make it in such a way that the constitution is preserved and the intent of the law is preserved when it comes to the constitution. Yeah. Before the end of this class, I'll think about, I'll come up with instances where there have been such inconsistency.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that response. Okay.
I think Uchechi nails it all. It's clearly written in the Constitution that in any case, any legislation, be it a federal act or whatever, when it comes in conflict with the Constitution supersedes. So it's better to even understand the Constitution than your own local legislation, because it is tantamount to being subject to the Constitution. Now, if we're looking at cases, I'll try and give one close to the one that Twitter happened with Twitter. So government suspended Twitter. The key used the word suspension of Twitter. Government never said banned. I'll tell you why government never used the word ban. At the point where banned is used, the only powers that are vested by the Constitution to enable such is vested in the National Assembly, not in the presidency or in the executive. So they could never have used the word ban. It was suspension. And the defense behind that suspension, the only thing that guarantees the executive to enact something like that is in cases of national security or in national cohesion. So they felt Twitter was a threat to national cohesion and national security at the time. So it was suspended. This goes to state that Nigeria could not even hold it for long. They tried holding it for long because Nigeria was part of, sometime in 2016, if I'm right, Nigeria approached the UN, Nigeria pushed that bill at the United Nations that all laws that are available for humans as protected by the Constitution physically must also be granted virtually, which means that any freedom of expression of any citizen being guaranteed by the Constitution is also guaranteed virtually. So any medium of expression is also protected by, those freedoms are protected, meaning the executive has no power to ban it, except the legislature in dire cases. So I hope you guys understand this. It was something that happened to everybody, and I just use that as an example. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Edie, for throwing more light on that. Okay, Harry, please can you go ahead and ask your question?
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. We can hear you.
Okay, this is Harry speaking from Delta State. Before this time, during one of these classes, we were actually told on how to recall a representative that is not performing well. And I also find out that the right to join association is one of our benefits as a citizen. Right to join associations and right for freedom of speech. Now, for instance, like a political pressure groups, do they need to register with CAC before they can be recognized? Probably when you want to come up with a referendum to recall a representative? That is the question. Then question number 2.
Wait, let me take your first question.
Sorry,
Let me take your first question. So your first question is, number one, let me first inform you that political parties are not registered with the CAC.
Pressure groups.
They register with, I'm starting from somewhere. I know what you said.
Yeah.
I'm just building.
Okay.
So a pressure group, depending on its functions, can be registered with as little as your local government secretariat. It doesn't need to be, especially if the pressure group operates locally, within a specified locality. So if, let's say, you live in Abuja, you can
Network, line is breaking.
If you live in a filter, you can register it with a filter local, wise or nationally. It is only right that hello? Can anyone hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes, we can.
I mean, is it clear? He was saying it was breaking, and I wasn't sure whether to
Hear you. You're clear.
You're back on now.
Okay, so if it's a pressure group that's going to function subnationally, that state, or nationally, it's best to register it as an NGO, non-governmental organization, with specific reasons. The KAMA law, the new KAMA Act, of course, restricts some political positions which you cannot take, and this is because people have used a lot of things to cause problems. And I'll tell you that some things are registered in Nigeria, which Nigeria right now regrets they are registered, because there are laws that protect them. And, they've been used for alternate purposes. So to recall a representative, you don't need to form a group. You elected the representative. Did you form a group? No, you did not. You can just say, okay, because we need 50% plus 1 of total votes cast in the election that brought in that representative, then we can say, okay, we can bring minds together. You don't need to formally register a group. No, you have your PVC, which validates you, because your PVC and your signature, your PVC name and signature, that attended to INEC for in a recall situation. So I've answered your first part of your question. You can go to the second one.
Okay. Thank you very much for that answer. The second one is when one infringes into the privacy of another. For instance, the law enforcement agents like the police, one thing that is common with them is that they break into the privacies of individuals, especially these boys in the street. They call the Yahoo or whatsoever, that they access their phones and all that. Now, is there any penalty that should be meted on those persons, those law enforcement outside the Police Act, that an individual, a civilian, can follow up and get to the bottom line of the issue, please? Thank you.
Uchichi, you want to go first with this, or I should?
So what I want to understand your question. Are you asking whether, say, for instance, the police have the right to search you, or I'm not quite clear.
Okay, I said I know that the police ordinarily does not have the right to infringe into individuals' privacy, as in breaking into individual cell phones to gather informations. Now, my question is that, is there any penalty that is meted on the law enforcement agent, like the police that does that, outside the Police Act? I know there is an act that guides the activities of the police. Outside the Police Act, is there any law, as in maybe enshrining the constitutions, that an individual, a civilian, can follow up, probably because his or her privacy was infringed into by the law enforcement agent, please?
Okay, so I'll just answer a bit, and then I'll allow the ED to So the thing with the rights of, say, the police and all of that, because the police is given the obligation of maintaining law and order in a society, right? And sort of acting as security agencies. They are authorized. They are authorized by law, to detect and prevent and even prosecute people who they are empowered to search any person if there is a reasonable ground, or a suspicion that a crime could have been or will be committed, right? So, and that's why it is important for us to really hone into the letters of the. So you cannot just say the police does not have any rights, right? So what you would be arguing on is, was there any reasonable ground? Did you just barge into my car because of the color of my hair or the way my hairstyle is? Like, what was that reasonable ground? Was it that I was speeding, or was it that I did not have my brake lights on? Because if you did not have your brake lights on, or if you were speeding, the police has the right to stop and search you, right? They have the right to stop and actually, go into your car and, look for things. They have the right. But then, was that ground reasonable, right? If you can indeed prove that, this policeman was being malicious, they had no reason to search me, they had no reason to confiscate my property, and it's always on that basis of proof of saying, what was the reasonable ground for you, to stop this person and search them without a warrant, search their laptop, search their bag, carry them to their house, all of these things. What was the reasonable ground, right? Obviously, there is the fundamental human rights. These are justiciable rights. You can take the police to court, based on the fact that your rights were infringed upon, and you argue your matter, you argue your case, and you were just riding jejely and they stopped you for no reason. But then you have to be strong in your proof that, there really was no reason for them to have stopped me. So yeah, I would say by and large, one, police, because they are mated with the obligation of maintaining law and order and acting as security agents, for the state. If they have any suspicion of crime, or if they feel that there's a reasonable ground to believe or suspect that a crime may have been committed or someone is going against the law, yes, they have the right. They have been given that right to search, stop and search you. But if there was no reasonable ground, then you can adjudge on your rights. Yes. Over to you, Edie.
Okay, so as much as, yes, there are rights protecting you as an individual, but there are also, nobody will barge into a place if it wasn't suspicious and without cause. And if they can't show cause or probably don't have a warrant, then you have a position to prosecute, because there are of course MOs to how they work. But if it was a case where if they knew a warrant would alert an already suspected tip-off, which was obviously given, and they burst into somewhere, it will be protected by the law, because you can't alert thieves and say you're coming to inspect. Everybody will run. So it's kind of a dicey situation. There's no perfect scenario. You just need to understand that what needs to be done on both sides. And that is follow the rule of law.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Edie. Thank you, Uchechi. I think someone is asking in the chat box that can you shed more light on what is reasonable ground? John is asking, can we have more insight as to what?
Yeah. Okay. So I had mentioned earlier, say for instance, you're driving without your plates, what's it called, your license plates, or you're at a checkpoint and then perhaps you do not have your the fire extinguisher, which is like a mandatory thing, or you were speeding, right? Speeding, and maybe there are different scenarios, but as long as there's a suspicion, there's some sort of reasonable ground to suspect that this person is not, and again, that the police, I mean, in a sane environment, in the developed countries, police are also supposed to undertake psychological assessment as well. So they can actually profile you based on, maybe your eyes are twitching, stop and your eyes are twitching, you're looking away, you're not answering them directly, or you're slurring on your words. So these are the different elements that can, incite suspicion that, okay, this person is not acting like a reasonable person, or this person, maybe underaged, or maybe a stolen vehicle, or there are different ways to it, but then it's subjective, just like Edie said. It's very subjective, and it's very particular to each circumstance is different. But yeah, those are the reasonable grounds.
Okay, awesome. I hope John, that's clear. Do we have any other questions? I can't see any hands up at the moment. Okay, I think let me check the chat box if you have any. Okay, no, I don't think we do. I don't think we do. Okay, so Uchechi, I think you've done a very good job. All the questions have been answered. All the bases have been covered. So well done.
Sorry, Lisa, someone is talking about access to one's phone. No, the policeman does not have the right to access your phone. That's definitely.
Oh, really? Because that happens a lot.
No. So what exactly? No, they would need a warrant, to gain access.
Okay, so in a situation like that, what do you tell them when they request for it?
Obviously, and it's just like, we could talk about the race situation in America, right? So at that point where it is heated, obviously to avoid any kind of confrontation or anyone acting out of turn, that's not a fight that you have to have right there and then. But obviously, your rights. Take down the police's name and number, or just take note of them, right? And then you fight for it legally. It's not a thing that you start dragging with them,
at the spot.
At that spot. But it's no, this one does not have the right to enter your phone. No, that's obviously wrong.
Okay. This is awesome. Okay, someone is asking that as to political action groups, where do I responsible? I don't understand this question, Gabriel. Maybe you could just raise up your hand and ask it verbally. Okay, someone is asking who is responsible for the action group CAC.
What does that mean? Who is responsible for the action group?
Gabriel, I think you should just ask this.
All right. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you. I wanted to ask as to political action groups. Who is responsible? Which agency is responsible for their duties? Is it the CAC or INEC, or there are other political action or other agencies that oversee their what do you call it now? The way they function?
Off the top of my head, I would actually defer to Edie on this one. I think CAC is only responsible for corporate registrations of organizations. They don't really, they don't stipulate your regulation, or they're just responsible for ensuring that you are registered legally, and that's it. But when it comes to specifics, it would be, I think I could have a say in that. And I think that some of these action groups, they have sort of like, what's it called? Like organizations that are not necessarily, they're not necessarily legal, but sort of like umbrella organizations that oversee their activities. But Edie, I'll put it to you to respond on that, please.
Sorry, I was responding to another message. So if I'm clear, this is about Lisa, please, will you take a question again? I've got mixed up a bit.
Okay, the last one, he was asking about who is responsible for action groups. What body? Political action groups.
Political action groups can be wings of a political, will be sort out by wings of a political party, an association. It doesn't necessarily have to be registered with the CAC. There are multiple associations, as you're seeing right now, multiple campaign groups, multiple this, multiple that, all not registered. They're just, an alliance of people. And, the Constitution backs that. So freedom of association backs it. You understand? It's just that your cause needs to be clear and you need to be understood and directed to what exact cause you're fighting for. Sometimes it could be to bring in a presidential candidate. It could be to provide better rights for the girl child in the locality. It just depends, but you need to be clear cut with how you're going to do. So there's no exact responsible when it comes to action groups. Exactly. It depends on what action, what kind of, to what extent the action is going to be taken, and if funds are going to be sought to legalize such. But if funds are not actually going to be pulled from donor agencies and it's just a few friends coming together, you could have like you have alumni associations of your schools that are not registered. They're just a set of people that were in a set that still come to intervene or handle projects in your school, and those are action groups too. So it depends on what action you're talking about, to what extent your action is performing, and what correlation with the outside world your action group will be entertaining.
Okay, awesome. Gabriel, I hope that answers your question. Do we still have any in the chat box? So Edie, I wanted to hear your thoughts about the one about the phone, where the police ask for your phone.
They have a right to ask if they have prior
Thank you. Yes,
information. If they have prior information, a policeman can't just say, "Give me your phone" from nowhere. No, that's not right, and it's infringing on your rights. But in a situation where they've come here and they have intel that everybody here is involved in one scam or something, you have the right to ask at that point. So like we always say about everything, is totally dependent on what exactly the situation is. Every situation, and we need to understand this, every situation in law is different. There are no two situations that are the same. And in one case, the citizen might be right. In the other case, the police might be right. And you have this disparity. So it must be local to it. An answer can only be given to a direct particular occurrence. That answer will not be the same for another one. Uchechi will tell you that in the law, it seems upon the number of laws we have, it seems like laws don't cover everything because there are always loopholes where you can't even imagine. It's human interaction. Yeah, there are more than a million possibilities of occurrences, and you can't have a lot of million laws just to cover it. It's not even possible. Some people might not have thought about it. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Edie. I think that will be all. Oh yeah, someone is saying they do it anywhere at any point, even without a warrant. Yeah, that's the situation on ground, unfortunately. But like Uchechi advised, don't engage them at that moment, to avoid escalation. But you could maybe take down their names and just escalate later. At least if they know that your rights, it will keep them on their toes next time. Yeah. So I think that will be all. Uchechi, do you have any final words? Or we're good?
No. I'm good. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. It was great having you this evening. Thank you. We've learned a lot, and it was very real. You used real life situations. Thank you for that. So I think this is the end of the class for today. I hope the assignments you're getting ready for the LG elections and all. Okay, I'm sure all the groups are ready. All the political parties are ready for that.
I need to say this.
Okay.
I need to say this. So the way campaigns will be focused, it's not to be shouting NNPP, PRP. Come on, that's not what we are reaching. Your candidates will come out on Wednesday at 8 p.m. and tell us exactly what they want to do. From today, the ban on campaigns is lifted. It depends on what you want to engage, but you need to start to explain why your party is good enough to pick. Remember that every member of the electoral college has the right to vote. Of the ninth cohort has the right to vote. So I would be expecting to see, you guys convince people to vote for you. And we've taught you enough not for you to sit down and be saying APC is great, PDP is great. I would penalize you for that. Trust me on that. I want to see a campaign. We've gone through manifestos and this thing. We've tried to give you a basis and direction on campaign and a clear thought. So if you have a question on the campaigns and stuff, you could ask me and I'll try to answer now.
Someone is saying he has not been assigned to a group. Yeah, the groups have been campaigning. The idea was for you to choose one that you want to join. Are you not aware of that? Okay, I think we have someone with a question.
And I must say this at this point, information is put on that group for you guys to access. I find it funny when questions are being asked when we provided earlier information. It's stressful. Go ahead, Basil, if I'm right.
Yes, you're right. Good evening, Electoral College. Good evening. I want to observe that the last time there was a campaign, it was really impossible for some of us to follow issues and campaigns by most of the parties, because some people engage in what I could see as clear case of spamming, a situation where you type the name of your party 100 times such that no one can even scroll up before you could see any other comment. Such should be discouraged. Whatever anyone wants to say, you can easily say it without spamming the chat environment. Thank you.
Okay, but still, to say you, Lisa, please take note of this. Any party that you can write your PDP votes, whatever, NIM votes, whatever, AAC votes, whatever. But anybody that spams in that 100 lines or whatever, that long line of just all you can see.
Okay. You're breaking, Edim.
We'll take 5 away from your marks. And how important 5 is. Most of you are 26 or whatever. I'll take that out.
Okay, awesome. Someone was asking if they could send images.
No, images is part of campaign now. You can even write, PRP, the future of the ninth cohort. You can write it. Anybody that uses that, I'll flag the person. But you can use that. We're okay with that. Not the one you write SDP 600 times. No, please don't do that, so that people can get to see information.
Okay. All right then.
Thank you very much. There are 2 hands up.
Some hands up, yeah. Okay, I think he has already asked his own. Rorschach, please, you can ask him.
Rorschach, please come.
Good evening, Edie. It is clear that I was just typing on our WhatsApp group that it is clear that PRP is hopefully the future of EC and from the words of the ED himself. However, I noticed that last week I tried seeing if we could post a picture on the Telegram group, and it said only location and contact, I think.
Okay, so I'll adjust the permissions. Thank you. I will adjust the permissions at 7 to suit that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you for bringing it to my notice, Rorschach. Well done. So I'm thinking in the absence of questions, I'd like to see a good game. Some of your conversations, I wouldn't even mind if you do that hashtag LG elections, hashtag electoral college NG on Twitter and take it there. Let's take conversations wide. I love to see a good campaign. The LG is the basic word, but it's the first handshake of democracy to the people. I'd love to see a great campaign. Lisa, what are you looking forward to? Okay, it seems Lisa is not available right now. So everyone, thank you for attending this class. I look forward to campaigns that begin at 8 o'clock. As they say in politics, give them hell. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.